Welcome to the Freek Easy.
You gotta stop doing that.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
I'm so excited. We are back. Welcome back to the Freek Easy. This is my white whale, guys.
This is?
I've been
The Freek Easy?
I've been watching the Phantasms, particularly the first one, by myself for years.
That's the saddest story I've ever heard.
I've been waiting to show somebody, and not just show somebody, show some people who could really appreciate and talk about it. Guys, welcome back. This week we are talking about Phantasms 1 and 2. I'm Juice. So you guys...
when you watch a movie with someone who feels a certain way about it, that can bleed through.
Yeah.
I have no idea how I would feel about Phantasm had I caught it on cable randomly by myself at 10 o'clock at night. I can tell you right now I have a feeling of elation. Joy's not the right word. I think the only way I can describe it is a feeling of phantasm.
There you go.
About the Phantasm movies.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't watch this with you guys.
You should have.
I know. I wanted to. I knew Jaren was excited about these, but I watched them by myself, sitting in an airport watching these movies.
On your phone.
On my phone.
The second best way I feel like you could possibly watch these.
Yeah.
I sat at the airport all day sitting there watching these movies, not quite knowing what I was getting into, not quite following what was happening, but laughing and smiling and knowing when it was all done that I enjoyed myself quite a bit.
Yeah.
I remember once, Jaren, I'm sure it was you, told me that you had found a sort of life's mission, that you knew the meaning of life or the secret of the universe or however you phrased it was in the movie Gangs of New York somewhere.
Yep.
And you were going to find it. I don't have anything nearly as grandiose to say right now, but I will figure out what a phantasm is before I die. And it will change things.
Well, it won't be from watching this series of movies, I'll tell you that much.
I didn't see a single phantasm in this movie.
No, we
anywhere.
did. We saw them. We just didn't know.
We just didn't know?
Didn't know.
They were in there.
This movie was about, like, space aliens, I think, from another dimension or
sort
something.
Sort of Jawas.
Definitely Jawas.
Yeah.
This movie was
undead Jawas.
filled with Tommy Jawas.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Guys, I just can't tell you. If you haven't seen the Phantasms, you should see it. You should see the first and second one at least.
Specifically, try to see them with Jaren if you can. It makes it better.
So my experience with the Phantasms, I was with a friend of mine in high school, and we were having a sleepover or something. Some girls were coming over. We wanted to go get some scary movies. We didn't want the same old Nightmares, Fridays, Child's Plays we'd seen 100 times. So we asked the clerk, "Hey, are there any scary movies we could check out? You could recommend?" He recommended Phantasm 2. Well, first he recommended a movie called Pin, which is another movie that is like super bizarre. P-I-N. And it's super bizarre. It's about this kid who is kind of a ventriloquist, but he gets like a full-size dummy and like develops a second personality that the dummy inhabits the dummy. It's bizarre.
Okay.
It was like yeah, it's weird, and it's like it was too good for its own good. It was like kind of well produced, and they took it real serious, and it was a super campy idea that could have been a lot of fun, but just wasn't. But he also recommended Phantasm 2.
Not Phantasm.
They didn't have Phantasms. They didn't have Phantasms.
That's
Started with
why
the
they
second.
didn't recommend Phantasm.
Well, so the first Phantasm,
because J.J. Abrams hadn't recreated
he hadn't recreated it yet.
Remastered it.
Well, yeah, it was not super widely available because it was not a huge release. Phantasm 2 had been picked up by Universal.
Yeah. Did you notice the bad robot logo when you watched Phantasm?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. because it caught us off guard immediately. Yeah.
Wow.
It was I mean, again, it was basically like Lost, I guess, essentially. Not fully, but I mean, it was very hard to find, and it wasn't out there, but the rest of the series existed. So J.J. Abrams' company remastered it in the early aughts, I think?
Yeah.
Something like that? Yeah.
So we take home Phantasm 2, and we watch this movie. And it is so bizarre and so out there. And they kind of give you a sense of what happened in the first movie. It's one of those that has like the replay or the recap at the beginning. So we kind of had a sense, but I spent a long time just assuming that this movie was the bizarre, unintelligible sequel. You know what I mean? Like it was the second one.
This was the Highlander 2 of Phantasm.
Yes, I thought this was the Highlander 2 of Phantasm. And so I searched for Phantasm, and no video store had it. At the time, I wasn't really like internet savvy to where I could jump on and tape trade a copy or find something. So it was just like, if it wasn't in the stores and it wasn't at the rental stores, it wasn't at like Sam Goody, I had no chance of getting it. Suncoast. It wasn't at Suncoast. I had no chance of getting it. It wasn't until it was probably 12 years later I found a DVD copy of Phantasm at a garage sale. And I was like, it was like finding the Holy Grail. I was like, oh, finally.
Plus it was a quarter.
Finally. $2. $2.
Man, you go to garage sales in nice neighborhoods.
No. So we went, I take it home and I watch it. And it is so bizarre. It is so much more bizarre than the second one. It is unbelievable. Yeah, man, it is.
You're not wrong. You may be overstating it.
Maybe overstating it. But
man, 2's real bizarre.
Yeah, 2 is real bizarre. 1 is super bizarre, and we'll kind of I'll give like the broad overview as best I can of the story here in a second.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about my experience. But it just had such a feel to it, and the first thing I noticed was it came off right away, the first Phantasm, with that feel of like going back in time. We talked about that, kind of being transported to the era by the Fridays and how they felt so 80s.
Yeah.
And this one was 79, but it just had that feeling, felt like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Some of does that make sense? That's
for sure.
That's what I felt, and that's kind of the thing I've taken away. It was bizarre. It didn't. You could tell the production value was not super high. It fit together weird, and there were kind of gory effects and bad scares, and cheesy. The cheesy effects that you're like, I'm supposed to be scared of that thing, and in this movie I am. But
I was gonna say, like, it felt like a horror movie at every moment without ever really delivering on that, outside of like that one time that one of the Phantasms maybe shows up and just brains that
drills
dude.
that guy's brain out.
Whatever, but outside of that, like, it never. But that's not a complaint,
right?
Like, I prefer a horror movie that is more scare and spirit
atmosphere,
than it is just gore after gore, So I fully get what you're saying, but at the same time, all of these movies I just expect to be grossed out and rarely am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I want to know, based on your recollection there, is okay. Let's reset the scene.
Okay.
You're in high school.
I'm in high school.
Your buddy's coming over.
Yeah.
You had a couple of girls coming over.
Right.
You want to scare them a little, hopefully impress them a little.
Yeah.
However that works, whatever way you want to phrase it.
Right.
And you don't even know what you're getting into, and you turn on Phantasm 2. And then all of a sudden, man, Reggie shows up.
Reggie, man, yeah.
And just steals all your thunder. Like, you're looking at this mountain of a man you could never compare to. How's that play in that scenario?
Reggie's a handsome man, dude, for sure. I love that head.
Loves it. He's got like the full skullet going on.
Dude, yeah.
From
Reggie's like a handsome Clint Howard.
He is.
Oh my god.
He is.
That's amazing.
Wow.
You're welcome.
You just made a fact. What was that Clint Howard horror movie?
Ice Cream Man?
Yeah.
Hey, he was an ice cream man.
He was
Reggie was an ice cream man.
Yeah.
Weird.
Wow.
Weird.
All right, so I have no reply. None of us knew what we were watching when it came on. Like when it
Did those girls ever talk to you again?
yeah. Surprisingly. Okay. So, let's give the cliff notes for Phantasm 1.
Let's hear him.
Oh, good.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Let's hear him.
Phantasm starts out with Tommy. We don't know he's Tommy then. It's just a guy.
Yep, he's
with
just 70s mustache guy.
70s mustache guy hooking up with a chick in a graveyard.
Obviously.
In a very well acted, very realistic love scene.
So realistic.
Yep.
The chick
That was great.
pulls out a knife.
He says at the end.
Which starts a trend in this movie.
Such good acting.
Awkward reactions
Yeah.
to certain scenarios.
Chick pulls out a knife, stabs.
A phantasm.
Phantasm.
That's not a phantasm. It's just a knife. She pulls out a knife, stabs him, and then turns into a creepy old man.
Yeah.
Was that her turning into it? Because it was like this weird, like...
That was. It was
I never quite got that, but I think that's what was happening every time.
I think that has to be what happens because we'll get to it when it happens again at the end.
Yeah.
She's gone, and the tall man has the knife.
Yeah, like I'm almost
Has to be
positive
what's
he's
happening.
like turning into a hot chick and then making love with men and then
then
killing
stabbing
them
them.
for some reason. What a man! That's how he gets them.
Because phantasm, Dan.
Okay.
So that's the open. Then we have the funeral for 70s mustache man. Now we find out his name is Tommy. He's the brother of Jody and Mike.
He was their brother?
No, he was a friend. He was Jody's
Friend?
friend.
I thought he was
I thought he was the
He was-
brother.
he was-
I thought Mike lived with him.
That doesn't make them brothers, dude.
I got the impression that he was just friends with Reggie and Jody, like that he was their friend.
Oh,
That's also the impression I got, but I could easily be wrong.
But I don't know.
maybe I'm wrong. I have always thought because there's all that weird stuff with like their parents are gone and Michael wants to get back on the road, and I always feel like they give the impression he only came into town because Tommy died. And so, I
got
thought
the impression
Michael
he
was
came back
living
into
with
town 'cause
Tommy.
Tommy died too, which I guess I wouldn't have known. No, because they talked about Tommy leaving, or not Tommy.
No, they
leaving.
talk about Jody leaving.
Jody leaving and
Mike
and
won't-
not taking
Mike-
Mike
with
was
him.
scared about him
Is he
leaving,
back in
right?
town?
Yeah. Oh,
I don't
boy.
know.
We're already
Here's
lost.
my only-
so-
yeah.
We have not gotten very far
I'll
into
say-
this.
I've seen this
yeah.
movie 100 times.
I'll say two things. You're
Okay.
probably right. 'Cause
right.
You got way more of a basis than I do. However, your reasoning that no, because all this weird stuff was going on, is irrelevant in this
You're
movie.
right. You're right. I'm connecting dots here that may not connect. So they don't let Michael. Michael's a young kid, 13. They don't let him come to the funeral because reasons. But he sneaks over and watches anyway. And while he's watching, he sees the tall man, who will be our recurring villain for the series.
Yeah.
The tall man, Mr. Angus Scrim. And I'm convinced that they let him grow to be a full-grown person before they named him, because if you were to look at this man and guess at his name, you would say, he looks Angusy. maybe a little scrimmy.
Yeah.
It looks like an Angus Scrim, and that would be his name.
7 out of 10 people could go into this guy cold and guess his name.
Right.
Yeah. The funeral itself takes place shortly after the tall man proclaims to Jody.
That is,
How does he word it?
the funeral is about to begin,
That's right.
sir.
Which I feel like it's important because that's a bit of a running
Yes.
instant between these two movies.
Yeah.
Or hopefully all five of them.
Hopefully. So the first instance we get that the tall man is a creep is that. But then Michael...
The first instance is when we see him.
Well, yeah. Well, when he turns
The first instance is when this blonde chick turns into him.
Yeah. And then he informs Jody that the funeral is about to begin in the weirdest way possible.
Yeah.
But then
I'm hoping the
Michael
camera caught your one-eyed as well as I did.
The funeral is about to begin, sir. But then Michael, while he's spying on the funeral, sees the tall man lift Tommy's casket back into the hearse by himself. So we know that something is up with the tall man.
Caskets are heavy.
Caskets are heavy, especially when they have a corpse in them. Mm-hmm. Tommy goes to see Grandma Webb.
Wait.
Yes.
Ozzy Osbourne?
Ozzy Osbourne.
Wow. Nope, I get it.
That's what I thought it was.
I get it.
I was just like, he came to see grandmother, and I was just waiting for.
Yeah, we had just seen from you news that Sony was planning a Madam Web movie for the Spider-Man universe.
Oh yeah.
And so immediately I made the joke as this scene progresses that this is exactly what I would imagine a Madam Web movie to end up being, and then I started calling her Grandma Webb.
Yeah. Grandma Webb,
because her tremendous actress of a granddaughter
man
was there.
Such a weird scene where Michael goes to see psychic grandma who doesn't speak but sees the future.
I never understood. I couldn't figure out what the purpose of this scene was, and they never really came back to these characters.
No.
So they don't come back to the characters.
Other than they do that whole thing with his hand that comes back later, I guess. Where
she gives him
no fear.
Yeah, she gives him the clue that the fear is all in his head.
Yeah.
Right, and
which does not play out.
This does not play out.
Like they want it to.
That's what she tells him. So
here's how I imagine the genesis of that scene going in a real life scenario. Michael's really into this weird, hesitant blonde girl that's his age, and knows she has a very strange grandmother. And so finally, when he comes to a point where he sees something that he just can't explain, he's like, well, maybe this is my in to talk to this really weird blonde girl.
Yeah.
I'll go see her. And then Grandma puts his arm in a demon box. And then we phantasm after that.
Right. So the main heft of the movie is Michael trying to get everybody to see that something weird is happening at the funeral home.
Yeah.
And I would say fairly standard horror movie. Fair in that everything he claims to see, everybody just kind of dismisses offhand.
Yeah.
Or it turns out to have some kind of practical explanation. Mm-hmm. Until he sneaks in there one night and cuts one of the tall man's fingers off and takes it home in a box to Jody, at which point Jody believes every word he said.
Because it's like crawling around.
Yeah, it's still
like
crawling.
He opens the box and his fingers like crawling
I feel
around.
like you really glazed over that.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the movie right there, you know? Because that's after we see the...
We see the sphere for
mirror
the first
ball,
time,
right?
too. Yeah.
We see the sphere for the first... Okay, so we see one of the spheres.
Yeah,
so the spheres...
because it grinds that random dude up.
Yeah, because I don't... who is that dude? Is he one of the dudes that works for like the tall man?
Is he a phantasm?
He just works at the...
All right, so
graveyard.
I've got some
Does that make him
confusion.
evil?
Okay.
I've got some confusion with this guy too, right? Because so when Mike cuts off the tall man's finger, this is where the big reveal is that his blood is like this bright
cheese
yellow
sauce.
color.
Yes,
Yeah,
totally
cheese sauce.
Yeah.
Okay, so he bleeds cheese sauce. When that random guy got stabbed in the face with the sphere ball, which was an amazing effect, by the way, because that thing just like zips so fast and just clings to his head. Like, oh my god, it was amazing.
Drills into his brain and spews blood.
So yeah, like he's running around and it's like shooting real colored blood out of his head.
Yep.
But then when he falls down, like the camera shot just shows his legs and you see this yellow puddle on the ground. And I was like, did this dude just straight pee himself? Or like,
Yeah.
I think
like
so.
what's going on here? But then the next scene is where we get the yellow blood from the tall man.
Well, but
so
that
I'm like,
was way thicker. wasn't it?
well, so I was like, okay, so Does he also have the yellow blood? But then why was the blood coming out of his head red? Did he actually pee himself? I have no idea what happened in that scene there.
The cheese sauce made me forget that I had just seen that guy pee himself.
Yeah.
But
I'm almost
gonna go
positive
ahead-
that must have been pee.
Based solely on
Had to
memory,
be.
I'm going to call that
Had to
pee.
be.
Because this
It wasn't
is
the
this giant
same
yellow
consistency.
puddle just like
It
flows out
wasn't
onto
the same
floor.
consistency. And theoretically, like, that's what happens
I
when
guess-
your brain gets drilled out.
bowels
Yeah,
release.
yeah, your bowels
Your
release.
bowels release. And this seems like the type of movie who would grab onto that weird fact and run with it.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that I saw that dude
Yeah.
straight pee himself after.
And there's no way we
Okay.
can possibly know
All
for
right,
sure.
all right.
So we also need to bring up the spheres, because the spheres kind of
Phantasms.
become they're not phantasms.
I think-
In later
what is
movies,
then?
later movies they're called sentinels.
Well, not now.
But they're not. They were called mirror balls now.
Who called him that?
Reggie.
Oh, damn it, Reggie.
So we get
When did Reggie
we get the sphere. I don't know. He brings it up in the second one, man.
All right, I'll allow it.
And the spheres become the other recurring villain. Well, like, it all becomes recurring villains, but the spheres are the other, like they're on the boxes.
Yeah.
And they're another, the tall man, and he's always holding a sphere, or there's spheres behind him. They become a thing for this. In this one, there's really just like the one,
Yeah.
and it just flies around and murders somebody who is essentially allied with the tall man.
Well, that happens in the second movie too.
Yeah,
there seems
they
to be
never
no
kill- yeah.
there's no allegiance for the spheres. They kill whoever's in the way.
Right.
Also, they show up out of nowhere, kill one person, and then are gone.
Yeah. Yes. Basically.
Sometimes they get stuck
yeah.
on the person.
By sometimes you mean that time that happened in 2.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but-
it stayed stuck on the guy in the first one.
Sure. But also, like, it didn't come back later.
No, because it was still stuck on the guy.
I don't
Just stayed
think
there, I
that's
guess.
how it worked. I don't think that dude was just
Also,
chilling there for 2 weeks.
no, it totally did come back later, because when it came,
Oh, it
it
did
came to
come
get
back
him,
later.
Jody just
Yep.
shot it and it
Yep.
exploded.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was the
Yep.
end.
That
And
was
then
it.
they had to
End
build
of
a
that.
new Phantasm for the second one.
Two. There's
Two more
several
Phantasms.
phantasms in the second one.
Yes, I see. I told you they were called Phantasms.
They're not phantasms. Anyway,
Something is a Phantasm.
so once Jody's on board, he gets Reggie on board. Reggie is their weird ice cream man friend.
That is not an exaggeration.
Straight
of any
up.
kind.
Weird ice cream.
Weird
man
ice
friends.
cream guitar man.
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
there's that scene where
There's a
Jody
little
is.
tuning fork. Bling.
Yeah,
Holds his tuning fork on
the scene where Jody is just.
After going through that jam session.
Yeah. Man,
Oh, this movie is crazy.
this movie is so bizarre. It's just
So eventually they capture a dwarf. They sneak.
a Jawa.
It's
Jawa.
Tommy, isn't it?
yes.
It's Tommy. Yes, they capture a dwarf.
That's where they pull it back and they
So-
realize that it's Tommy's
Right. Okay.
face.
Well, so there's these. That's the other thing that Michael keeps seeing is all these little weird Jawa-looking dwarfs running around this funeral home. They end up capturing one. It has Tommy's face, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy!" So they call the ice cream man and store the essentially dead Jawa monster thing in
Yeah.
his ice cream truck.
This
Yeah.
is after Jody has his moment in the graveyard, correct?
Yeah.
Is that what
Go ahead. So Jody goes and hooks up.
Cinematic masterpiece. Yeah, Jody goes to hook up with the same girl from the beginning of the movie,
Yep.
which may or may not be the tall man in any way. And basically wanders off into this cemetery with her, which is intensely awkward.
So
Because he's
awkward.
back in town for his friend's funeral, and like pretty much night one, he's like, "Well, let me go meet this chick in a bar. I've talked to her for 10 seconds. Let's go back to the cemetery where I just buried my buddy
Yeah.
and see what happens from there." Tommy follows and is just spying on them.
Michael
essentially.
follows.
Or Michael follows.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Michael follows. And
Well,
is,
that's the other thing. He follows Jody everywhere.
Yeah.
He won't. He's afraid Jody's going to leave, so he won't let Jody out of his sight.
yeah.
and they kind of like I
Even when
like-
Jody takes his weird jacket, shirt, and jeans bike ride.
Yes, not motorcycle.
not
not
motorcycle.
That would make sense. Bicycle ride.
Yeah.
With his-
Michael chases him down the
Yeah,
street, hiding
exactly.
behind
And
trees
that's sort
and
of
stuff.
like a big. that feels like it plays as a big part when we get closer to the end. The fact that he's been following them and he's overhearing these conversations. At one point early, Michael is under a car trying to fix something, and Jody's having a conversation with a neighbor about how he's going to leave pretty soon. He's got to get out of town, and what is going to happen with Michael, and Michael follows him everywhere, and he's just going to leave, and Michael will be fine. And they're having this conversation as if they're not 7 feet
from Michael,
who can clearly hear everything they're saying. And so they kind of build this theme that Michael has this fear of Jody leaving and really wants to be with him and go with him wherever he is and blah, blah, blah. So this scene here, and it's remarkable for a couple of reasons. First of all, because similar to Tommy's reaction to his moment when he got to the end of that scene, and how did he phrase it? He's like, "That was great." Jody's in the middle of his moment basically, and this chick takes her shirt off, and Jody just goes, "Wow, which is just the weirdest reaction possible. And then very shortly after that, Michael confronts one of these Jawas, freaks out, goes tearing off through the cemetery, screaming his head off, right past Jody and his female companion there. And Jody looks up and is like, I think something's wrong. Or something along those lines.
Like my brother, I think something's wrong with him.
I think something's wrong with him.
Maybe something's wrong. Or maybe him screaming through a cemetery is totally normal. I don't know. I better go check.
Yeah. What a terrible scene. So they decide to go. So after they've captured the dwarf, and they decide they're gonna go ransack the funeral home
at night.
Jody's gonna head up there. Jody's gonna head up there. Michael is going to stay. They come back because he goes to stay with the chick. The grandma's not there, but that's the daughter. The people he goes to see is that the granddaughter and like her mom.
Yeah, at like they've got an antique shop or something.
They've got an antique shop, which is where he finds the picture of the tall man from like the moving picture of the tall man from like 100 years ago. Yeah. And all of a sudden he has to go tell Jody about it. Jody's already on his way to invade the funeral home.
Yeah, sure.
It's
Which
weird.
is another funny moment because it's not like if he had just discovered the tall man was super strong.
Yes.
You might need to run and tell Jody, hey, I know this guy's super strong, except you've already told him that part. All he discovers is that the tall man is very old.
Yeah.
Which anyone who looks at the tall man would know. Maybe you wouldn't know he's that old. But what is that like when you find Jody and you come running up and go, I got information. He's very old. That's not helping anything.
Right.
Oh, man.
So they get into the funeral home, and they end up discovering... Reggie shows up, and so Reggie and Jody and Mike are all in this funeral home, and they are discovering a room with a bunch of, like, bins. Like, they look like oil drums, kind of, but they've got, like, windows on the side. And we look
I believe they're called phantasms.
They're not called phantasms. But when they look in the drums, they all have the dwarfs in them, and they're all people they recognize. So what's essentially going on, they discover, is that the tall man is taking all the corpses, reanimating them, and crushing them down into dwarf size.
So weird.
And then sends them through a portal that is also in this room. And the portal leads to their home planet, which is kind of like a red... they make the
Mars-ish.
Mars, yeah, it looks like Mars.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like what we perceive Mars to look like in science fiction, right?
Yeah.
It's like red and windy. And they say something about he must have to crush him down. Oh, because Michael kind of falls through the portal, but they pull him back, and he's like smoking, and he's like, oh, they have to crush him down because of the gravity and heat, and then they're going to be slaves over there. Like, this is weird.
Yeah, I didn't like. I did not understand like What?
Yeah.
So this is what he's doing. He's stealing bodies from the cemetery.
Sometimes creating them.
Sometimes creating them, reanimating them.
Very rarely, though.
Crushing
Like,
them.
if you don't mess with him, he generally doesn't kill you.
Or unless unless you hit on him when he's...
Okay, Tommy.
Yeah.
Tommy and almost Jody.
Okay.
But for the most part.
So like, okay, so that's the thing, right? That's what's
Yeah.
happening in these movies. This weird mortician is stealing bodies.
Right.
He's reanimating them. He's crushing them down into weird dwarf size, putting robes on them, sticking them in barrels, and then throwing them out to Mars so they can be slaves.
Yeah.
That's the plot of our movie.
Yes.
That's what? Like I don't even know, man. Like it's just not what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting weird space stuff. I don't know.
And here's the point that I wanted to make. I don't know how this will play. But you got all these people who are dead. Now, it's a little weird that he kills a couple of them because it seems totally meaningless because it's not like he's got a lack for bodies in a graveyard.
Yeah.
But let's cut those out.
Right.
Let's just say he's stealing bodies, reanimating them,
Yes.
shrinking them,
Yep.
and making them slaves on another planet.
Obviously.
They were already dead going into this. You know, not ideal, but also not that bad. You know, like not worth making it your life's mission to get killed by this person.
Yeah.
As our protagonists seem to do.
No. So, and I guess he must be like an alien also, or like the whatever the master alien race is that's enslaving. I have no idea.
Everybody.
Right? Yeah. So like that's got to be what's going on here, right?
Why is he so tall?
Because
If
he's
he comes
an
from that
alien.
planet?
Because he's,
Well, maybe
does
he's
he have
not
to
from
be
that planet.
short?
I don't know. I have no idea, bro. I don't
That
understand.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's no. We don't have to make sense of that. That just doesn't make sense.
So the end. Let's gloss through to the end, and then we'll come back and discuss these all the things that don't make sense.
Okay.
Oh, no, we won't.
We'll be here all night.
Yeah.
So
I gotta work tomorrow, brother.
So they come back, and so they go into the funeral home, discover all this stuff, have a brief encounter with the tall man where they trick one of the sentinels into drilling his head.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect it. It just shoots out a bunch of yellow blood, but it doesn't affect him. Then they set the portal to suck, apparently, so it starts sucking everything into it.
But wait, Reggie just touched the top of the
Yep,
thing.
just like the
It's
tuning
like tuning
fork.
fork.
Like his tuning fork.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it made it.
It's
turn
going
it-
from suck to blow.
Yeah, vacuum mode turned on. And
Right.
just started sucking everything in.
They escape the house. Reggie meets the girl who is the tall man and gets stabbed,
Yes.
which is super weird because they're like escaping, and he stops to try and help this chick and like carry her out.
Yeah.
And then she stabs him and turns into the tall man.
yeah. Got him.
And then the funeral home disappears. And then they go home, and they go home, and the tall man chases them because he's in that hearse, right?
Yeah.
So he chases them, and Jody gets the bright idea. There's this mine shaft 1,000 feet down. We'll lure him up there, push him in, and throw rocks on top of him. So he leaves Michael alone in the house, knowing that the tall man is out there looking for him.
Yeah.
And so here we get now I feel like we get kind of it returns to horror movie, standard fare, because the tall man shows up at the house, chases Michael around the house a little bit, and then Michael runs out of the house and the tall man chases him down the street apparently
To the mine shaft,
and then through
down
the
the
woods to
street.
the mine shaft.
Yeah.
This is where we get the payoff for the Grandma Webb scene, because a couple of the dwarves, he falls in like a mud puddle and some hands start popping out to grab him, and the lady in lavender is standing there with a knife trying to get his attention, but he remembers that if he's not afraid, they can't hurt him, and so he just runs past them. And then the tall man comes back, chases him over, falls down he chases him, and Michael jumps over the shaft, and then tall man just falls down the shaft, and then the boulders are us boulders fall on him. and pin him in. And so then we think we've beaten the tall man, but then Michael wakes up, and he's been telling this story to Reggie, and Reggie tells him that nope, that's not what happened. You just created all that because you were sad that Jody died in a car accident. And Reggie tells it, and he says, Michael says, but it seems so real. And Reggie says, hey, let's take a trip. We leave first thing in the morning, go pack your stuff. And Michael goes upstairs, and the tall man is waiting in his room, and he says, boy! And then hands come out of the mirror and pull Michael into the mirror in that scene of our movie.
And let's not glaze over the scariest part of this movie is that in whatever reality this takes place in, Reggie is just this kid's guardian. Somehow. That's just okay.
The ice cream man.
Yeah. The ice cream man.
Neighborhood ice cream man.
With that haircut.
Man, I was pretty surprised by the twist at the end. Because they definitely... Like, I know that Mike is important in the movie, but they definitely made Jody feel like the main character, I felt like, through the whole movie. So when we got to the end and they're like, big reveal, Jody's actually been dead the whole time. None of this was real. It never happened.
Phantasm the whole time.
It was a phantasm the whole time. Phantasm of your imagination. That's, like, so I was kind of like, whoa, okay. Yep. Did not see that coming. What's going on with this movie?
Right.
But then the tall man was there, so it was real, or kind of. I have no idea at this point.
The real twist doesn't come in until Phantasm 2.
I know.
Find out that Reggie's the main character.
I know.
So one thing I'm going to bring up is that this is kind of the first movie where that we've discussed on the Freak Easy, where we get that kind of twist at the end where it's like, well, first of all, where it's like, was it all in your mind the whole time? Yeah. Which was executed very poorly. But where we do get the actual, like, you thought you won, but you didn't. Nothing you did mattered. Yeah. And I'm going to kill you anyway. Yeah. Because that's kind of a horror movie finish you see a lot of times where they get through the climax and you're like, oh, we survived.
I mean, Jason always did that at the end of all those movies.
Well, but those were always implied to be... Were they real? Were they hallucinations? I mean, like in the first one, the little kid comes up out of the lake, and then she's fine talking to the cops.
That's true.
It's almost like the reverse of that.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's true.
This is the first one where they grab the main guy and the credits roll.
Except I still don't know if the rest of the movie actually happened or not.
So I have a theory that I'm going to come back to after we discuss when I tell you guys
include the word phantasm.
When I tell you guys about 3, 4, and 5.
Oh boy!
I have a theory that I'm going to discuss. Let's talk about 2.
We should, let's run through 2 real quick. We're already 45 minutes into this show, trying to dissect the first one.
Brother, I got to be honest with you. If the Freak Easy gets picked up for a second season, we're doing Phantasm 1 and 2 again. So, I'm going to spend the rest of my life dissecting these movies.
So the second one opens with the end of the first one. The scene where Reggie and Michael are kind of talking about everything that happened, and Reggie's telling them that it was all a hallucination.
Except Reggie's much older now.
Reggie's about 10 years older. Well, that doesn't happen yet because it's just scenes from the first one.
Yeah.
Then Michael goes upstairs, gets grabbed by the tall man, and then we cut back to Reggie, who is 10 years old, a solid 10 years older.
Yeah.
And he ends up some of the Jawa dwarf things show up, and he ends up trying to fight them off.
Hey, which you can immediately tell there's a bigger budget for this movie because there's multiple Jawa guys and they show them this time. Yeah. Like they look like little monsters this time.
Yep.
We never really got that in the first movie.
No, just the Tommy Jawa.
Yeah.
Which is like, there's no way you'd recognize most of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he pulls the trick. Reggie pulls the trick where he puts out the pilot lights on his stove. There's like a fire going in the other room. So he's going to blow up his house with the Jawas in it, and then he runs upstairs where they're dragging Michael out of the closet, which I always thought was funny because it was such like at the end of the first one, it's kind of like he disappears into nowhere. The hands come through the wall and pull him into the mirror. Yeah, and it's the credits roll. But in this one, nope, they just dragged him into the closet and knocked him out.
And then pull him back out.
Right, and they're dragging him back out. Reggie kind of grabs him. They jump out the window, and then the house explodes.
Yeah.
Then we fast forward another 8 years. Michael is all grown up, and he's getting out of a mental institution.
Reggie's age makes sense all of a sudden.
Reggie's age fits now. But it cracks me up because they do that thing where, like, Michael's talking to the warden or his doctor or whoever, and you can hear his mental kind of
tell
just
him
tell him what he wants.
Yeah.
And he tells him everything he wants, and the doctor's just like, yep, you're cured, and just lets him walk out. You know what I mean? Like,
You've worked real hard. You're free to go.
Yeah. So he leaves right away and starts digging up corpses in the graveyard. They're all empty. Reggie shows up and tells him they're all empty, and Reggie is once again doing none of it was real shtick.
Yeah. Except now, also, he never blew up his house.
Right. You know, yeah.
So
and
now, like, what the heck's going, like, what was real and what wasn't, right? Because, now he's like, oh, yeah, you still think I blew up my own house to do this and that? Like, and then they show his house and it's clearly fine or whatever. And
except it immediately blows up right away.
Then it for real blows up.
With people in it this time.
After he describes everyone who's in the house waiting to see Michael.
Yeah.
His wife and his daughter and somebody who can't wait to see his Uncle Mike and like all these people, and they all die in this explosion.
Which Michael sees coming.
Yes.
Yeah, because now Michael's having visions and stuff, and you totally forgot about the girl.
Oh, yeah, he's connected.
He's connected to some girl who's having the same kind of visions.
Yes. And
His name is definitely not alchemy.
has seen... She's seen she's seen all the stuff he's been through.
Yeah.
So she knows everything that's happened.
Yeah.
So now we find out. So Reggie and Michael set out on a revenge mission, and now we find out that, and at least we know the tall man is actually clearing out every town he goes to. Now he didn't their town for whatever reason, but as they're chasing them across the countryside. Every town they come to is like desolate and cleaned out, and everybody's dead or moved away because the tall man has cleaned out the town and sent them all to be crushed up dwarf slaves.
Yeah.
We get the great scene where they break into the hardware store and build a bunch of weapons.
Man.
Oh my man.
Reggie builds the 4-barrel shotgun.
Yeah.
Which becomes his staple weapon for the series.
Really?
God,
really?
Wait, we get more Reggie?
Reggie.
I'm so excited.
Dude, okay, we'll talk. Let's finish 2.
Yeah. We're not sleeping tonight, boys. We're watching Phantasm 3, 4, and 5.
So, Michael builds that blowtorch.
Dude.
This movie is crazy.
It's cool. They put some money in the cash register.
They did.
It's just a blowtorch, right?
Do what?
Yeah, I don't think $200 is going to cover all the stuff they took.
No, it's fine. They paid for it. It's all good.
So they're off on their revenge mission, and they are traveling town to town. They find a couple traps he set for them, and we get to see him overcome the traps. Then they finally catch up to him, and this is where they meet Alchemy, Kimmy for short.
Wait, there's a real person named Alchemy
girl.
in these movies?
They pick up this girl on the side of the road.
Well, now that's just
and
ridiculous.
her name is Alchemy.
Alchemy.
Then they get to the town and they hook up with the other psychic girl, and her grandpa has just died, and that's how she knows. It's super weird. She's like that's some kind of signifier for her. She says at one point, in the next couple of days, my grandpa will be dead, and then all this becomes real. I don't know what that means. But he's being interred by the tall man. There's a priest who is helping the tall man, but then doesn't want to help the tall man, and he gets sphered.
The guy from the Avengers?
The guy from the Avengers gets sphered and gets his brain drilled out by one of the spheres.
Yep.
There's a couple. There's
Phantasms.
There's a monster in a gas mask that Reggie has a chainsaw sword fight with.
Yep. Real thing. Really happened.
They
had a much bigger chainsaw.
There's a guy in a suit who gets sphered by the new sphere. This sphere has
Phantasm.
Blades on it, and it drills inside his spine and up through his body and comes out tries to drill out of his mouth.
And it gets stuck there.
Yeah,
it's
stuck on that tough cheek muscle, man. It just can't drill through that.
It's the worst Phantasm.
I mean, it still killed the guy.
Didn't kill all the other people.
Reggie in this one, Reggie takes out the tall man because he thinks ahead to pour boric acid in the embalming fluid that the tall man is using. And then when they confront the tall man, somebody stabs him with the boric acid pump.
Yeah.
and it pumps it's a what's the stuff?
Like
embalming fluid.
Yeah.
It's like an embalming fluid pump. And when they stab the tall man with it, it pumps all this boric acid into him and he starts to melt.
Yeah.
What else happens? Then they run out. I think that's it. Oh, then he burns the place down. He burns the place down.
Right. They think that, because he uses the blowtorch and he just lights everything up.
Yep.
But like then that's when they go outside and the other girl.
Alchemy pulls up. She's just like, and that part always cracks me up because like they just burned this place down. They just killed the tall man, and so they're running out of the burning, flaming funeral home, and she just pulls up in a hearse and she's like, "Hey, what's up, guys? What's going on?" And Reggie's just like, "Hey, Alchemy, you came back for us, babe." And they all just jump in the hearse and drive off.
And then her ear falls off.
Then her ear falls off.
And all hell breaks loose.
She turns out to be the tall man,
She's
presumably.
the Phantasm.
She's the Phantasm. It was her the whole time.
And hands come through and grab, because Michael and the psychic chick. Yeah. No, it's real. And then the hands come through and pull him out of the hearse, apparently.
Man.
After Reggie's
and then
been
the credits
thrown
roll.
out.
Yeah, Reggie gets thrown out of the hearse. The hearse drives off, and then they get pulled out of the hearse while it's driving, I guess. I don't know. It's not super clear. It's not super clear.
Clear enough.
So that's Phantasm 2. It's
In
a
a
little
nutshell.
more. It's in a nutshell. It's a little more straightforward. There's like some action.
You keep saying that.
I feel that way too, though, about the second one. Like, it was, okay, so the beginning was a little weird and jarring because they made the entire first movie look like it didn't happen after that movie ended by telling us that the whole movie didn't happen and giving us a different reality.
But it also ended with it did happen.
I know.
And the same reality.
Okay, but like all of this
starts off the same way.
Everything in between the rest of that, though, feels like it was a little more like coherent, like we knew what they were doing. Like in the first movie, there were all those weird scenes that like didn't feel like they fit together, and I didn't quite understand what was going on for a good chunk of it. Like, you know, we had Ozzy Osbourne and his granddaughter giving fortunes, and we had, you know what I mean? Like there was all that weird stuff in there. And
I hesitate to agree with more coherent, but I can't argue with less incoherent.
I mean, this time at least this time they were just immediately like, yo, my family's dead. Yo, let's go get this girl and then kill the tall man. And then they spent the whole movie like trying to kill the tall man.
Yeah.
So
I still feel like every decision was questionable.
Man, yeah.
Point.
The story is not more coherent. The narrative of the movie is more coherent.
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly,
more straightforward.
Exactly. That's where I'm getting lost.
Yeah.
Because number one, especially, and two probably the same, but number one especially, like there's not a good decision made in that movie at any point. Like there's no reason for them, even when they find out this guy is weirdly supernatural. There's no particular reason for them to be going after him. And then once they start going after him, every time they're like, oh, let's hunt the tall man, but let's wait for nightfall and then sneak into his cemetery without any backup.
By ourselves.
Like, you
maybe
do that
with or without weapons.
Yeah, you do that in the daylight with the cops. You know what I mean? Like, even if you have to make something up, you definitely don't go there at night. Even if you're going to sneak in and find something by yourself. You don't go when they're at their strongest.
Yeah.
And you can't see them. You know? And then, two, I thought was a lot more of that. But I guess you're right. Like narratively, it did at least flow whereas they had an actual goal.
Yeah.
Of sorts.
Well, and you can kind of follow what's happening. Like Danny said, in the first one, there's just so many scenes that are just like, here's a scene, now here's a scene, now here's a scene.
Yeah. Like, especially for the first half of that movie, I was just like, what is even this movie about? Because, like...
For the first half.
Well, I know, but it was real bad.
I got through 4 halves of those movies and never even came close to answering that question.
I know, I get it. But still, like, that's the way I felt because of all those random scenes, like, pasted together. And this one did feel like they were at least, like... they set a mission and then they went on their mission. I don't know.
Yeah.
But holy cow, dude! It's just both of these movies. But you know what? Like at the end of them, I had so much fun watching them because they were so ridiculous that I definitely liked them. Yeah, like I liked them. They're so bizarre and they're so poorly acted, and the decisions that who decided Reggie was like the standout like main character guy? Like, dude, what? That's got to be the weirdest like main character casting I feel like I've ever seen in one of these movies. Because again, I mean, good for them, I guess. But I don't know.
Because through 2, and from what I'm told, the series, Reggie becomes the main
character, main dude.
Amazing.
And I mean, he's not in 2/3 of the first one.
I know.
Even when but that's the thing.
He was set up to be that friend that you knew was gonna die in the first one. I was like, that ice cream, and then he did. I was like, that ice cream. I can't wait. That ice cream truck guy's gonna die for sure. And they sent him away with Jawa Tommy, and I was like, well, that's the end of him. Yeah. Like, there's no way he's surviving that.
As a franchise,
and then he pops back up. He just pops in, and they jump, and he's like, "Hey guys, what's going on? I escaped.
I'm here now. I set all them girls free. Remember that? I found all these girls, and I set them free. What is going? What?
Forgot all about that. As a franchise, it is very bizarre that Reggie becomes your hero. But even in a self-contained movie, and bearing in mind, Phantasm came out in like 79, and Phantasm 2 came out in like 88.
Yeah.
This was not planned as a franchise. Even with self-contained within the first movie, Reggie's prominence makes very little sense. Because he's not in the first 2/3 of it, like, at all.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he's just the weird friend who delivers ice cream and plays guitar and also is in the main battle. and then is the caretaker of this child.
Yeah.
When his family dies. Like, none of that plays as anything.
So
and
weird.
Then they make 1 to 4 more movies about this guy.
Right. All right, so let me tell you guys about anything else you guys want to bring up about the second one?
No, I got nothing else.
I don't know if I'm more excited to see 1 and 2 again or 3 through 5 for the first time.
Hey,
well, the first thing I want to talk about is the timeline of these movies.
The Phantasm is a part of my life until I figure out what the heck it is.
It's going to be a part of your life for a long time.
I thought when we watched the Hellraisers, I was going to be trying to like really dissect things. This takes it, man. This is like
Hellraiser is the most linear story I've ever seen in comparison with Phantasm.
Yeah.
So these movies span almost 40 years. The first one came out in 78. The second one was in 88, so 10 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
The third one was 93. Okay, so another
5 years.
5 years. The fourth one was 98.
Wow.
So another 5 years.
Yeah.
And then the fifth one, are you ready, Dan? John knows. The fifth one was 2016.
That's like yesterday.
What?
Yeah.
Like yesterday.
They made one of those recently?
In 2016.
Holy.
Who's the main character?
Reggie!
I'm dead.
Same.
We're
same
done.
actor.
I can't wait.
Turn this podcast
We're not sleeping
off.
tonight. We're watching these
We
movies.
are getting together to watch these, right? Like, we're going to watch the rest of these.
We already are together.
Yeah, we're all together. We're doing it right now. We're doing this.
I'm down for this. Listen, so I'm going to explain some of these, and they're not going to do it justice.
That's fine, because we're going to watch them at some point.
Yeah. 3, I almost tried to call the audible for us to watch 3. Timeline would have been tough for that for this week. 3 is actually a pretty direct following. Well, they all follow immediately after each other. Three is very similar in tone and execution to the second one. You know, it's kind of got that crazy. Reggie is back on the hunt. It follows Reggie. He wakes up in the street as the hearse is driving off.
Oh.
And so his mission is to find
Michael.
Find Michael. Yeah, to find Michael. He meets this kid who is like a full-blown psychopath, and murders like he meets this kid murdering a bunch of people, and is like, hey, this kid seems like a great sidekick for me, and he takes this kid with him. He makes friends with he makes friends with this other chick who's
too.
Not Alchemy.
Alchemy too.
No, she's kind of like a soldier chick, so she's kind of a warrior. But she shows up with this other chick, and he's like, "You guys got to get out of here. These monsters are gonna kill you." And they're like, "Ain't nobody gonna kill us." And they immediately kill the other one. And she's like, "All right, I'm out of here. Let's go." It's fantastic. But so this team, this group he's assembled is trying to hunt down the tall man now. The original actors come back in this one, so like the Michael is now the original Michael again, the actor. Yeah. And we get to see a little bit of him. The fourth one is almost interesting because it's when it starts off, it picks up where the third one left off. Michael's a bigger part of this one. Jodie is back for this one. Yep.
Okay.
Original
Jodie. From this point on, it's all the same cast.
These movies are off the rails.
They are off. Well, hold on, because the fourth one starts they start showing flashbacks, and right away you're like, the first flashback you see, you're like, this is just a scene from the first movie. And then you see a couple more flashbacks, and you realize that they are scenes from the first movie. Everybody is young. It is clearly the same people. But you start to realize you have not seen these scenes before.
Wow.
So the fourth movie is half deleted scenes from the first movie.
What?
It is so bizarre. And then the rest of it is this story with Jodie and Michael, where we find out that Jodie he was not crushed down into a dwarf when he was killed. Instead, he was made into one of the spheres. So like there's this sphere that will fly around, and it'll like project Jodie, and he's like trying to get them to go through. We also find out that Michael has a sphere in his head and has always had a sphere in his head. It's so weird. So weird. You can't even imagine.
What?
Off the rails. And I'm not like I'm telling you this stuff, it's not going to make it, you're not going to be like, "Whoa, I can't believe my mind would have been blown." These aren't like spoilers. This is just like what happens in the movie. This movie made me super mad. Not super mad. The scenes are not good. You know, like the story is not cohesive. It has all these
don't say.
It has all these old deleted scenes, and you watch these scenes and you kind of wonder, like you realize, like, man, I'm surprised the first movie was as coherent as it was, because they obviously had no idea what they were shooting.
Right.
Because these scenes, like, I have no idea where these scenes would have fit had they put them in the first movie.
Yeah.
So that's super weird. And then the fifth one is this really bizarre. It picks up again right where the fourth one leaves off.
20 years later.
And it's got this real bizarre dynamic where it's trying to follow Reggie through three different timelines, basically. There's a timeline where Reggie...
Oh, so we have multiverse going on
cool. Yeah, so hold on, because that's coming back to the theory I teased earlier.
Okay. So
there's a Reggie who is talking to Michael, and he's been committed, and Michael is telling him that he has dementia. There's a Reggie that is wandering through the desert, trying to get back from the events of the fourth one. And then there's a Reggie who is wandering through a post-apocalyptic world where the tall man has taken over the world, and Michael is leading a rebellion, resistance, military force against the tall man and his forces. It is, and so Reggie is bouncing between these three guys. Like, it's not three different Reggies; it's Reggie bouncing between these three timelines.
Yeah.
It's kind of a neat idea. It's executed very poorly. It gets a little better towards the end, where the lines start to blur a little more. Like in the beginning, we see something and then it's like it flashes over and it's like Reggie telling the story, and then in the middle, like he'll wake up from each timeline, right? You're like, oh, what I thought I was, and then in the end, they're starting to blend together, where he'll like walk from one room into the other, and he's in the other timeline. In that movie, and this is my theory, in that movie, Michael mentions membrane theory, which is the theory that when you have alternate universes and they get close enough and start touching, like the people who are touching in those universes they start to bounce back and forth between each other. Yeah. I think my theory is because at some point, I don't remember if it's 2 or 3, they say that they're not space aliens, they're interdimensional aliens. The tall man is. And we find out later that there's multiple tall men and stuff like this. So there's clearly multiple realities. My theory is that as the tall man is bouncing through these realities, it's not that did this movie happen? Did this movie not happen? Did Jodie die fighting the tall man, or did Jodie die in a car accident? I think that we're seeing the consciousness bounce to a new reality. Whoa. So like Michael wakes up in a new reality, and then Michael wakes up in a new reality with Reggie, right? And where Jodie has died in this timeline, but then Reggie becomes at the end of that one, Reggie becomes the personality that is bouncing through the timelines.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's the only way that it makes sense.
Kind of. It's the only way it kind of makes sense.
Timeline is the phantasm.
So yes, that's it. Bingo.
Got it.
Bingo.
I had a blast watching these movies. I had a blast watching these movies with you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
You guys got to see. We have to watch the third one. The fourth and fifth one are bananas.
I need to know now, though.
You got to know.
Yes, I have to know now. Yeah.
The thing I'm going to warn you, like,
transcended who we are as people. It's become a bigger thing.
Phantasm 3 is a lot more fun than it sounds to describe.
No, it's not.
4 and 5 sound more like they sound wackier than they are to watch. They're kind of like they're fine. We're gonna watch them. They're fine, and you guys should all watch them.
Yes,
guys,
and watch them for next season when we go Phantasm 1 through 5.
So we're gonna just redo
them all again.
We're not waiting. We're just gonna redo them again.
All right,
because we can never stop talking about these movies. It's important.
Oh my god,
a thing has happened to us.
Hey,
we'll never recover from.
I will say these movies have a pretty banging theme song.
I love the soundtrack, man.
Yeah, me too. I actually was really into the soundtrack for both of those movies.
Yes.
So,
and it keeps the soundtrack like that soundtrack stays through the whole thing.
Sweet.
That I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad we didn't have to prompt you to bring that up, because that just means it just is that good.
Exactly, because we were having that discussion while we were watching it too.
Yeah, I loved it.
I was like, I don't know what to say about this movie, but the soundtrack guy.
Yeah,
he's on point.
He's got it on point. Yeah.
John, any closing thoughts?
Somebody tell me what a phantasm is. It's not a thought; it's a request, please. I can't
Guys, I can't tell you if you haven't seen the Phantasms. They are another outlier. We talked about the slashers and we talked about the Hellraisers and how they were kind of different and they were an outlier. This is another outlier where it's not like anything. It's not like anything you can imagine. It's not like anything you've ever seen. Even sitting here listening to us break down almost scene for scene the first movie, you can watch that movie and feel like it's your first experience with it.
Please do.
And then tweet John what you think of Phantasm.
Tell me what a phantasm is. I can't live like this.
Any other thoughts, Danny?
I have nothing else. I had a lot of fun watching these bizarre movies.
Danny, ask him what a phantasm is.
Oh, what's a phantasm?
Thank you. Right? Good question.
All right, guys. Yeah. So this one is kind of a weird outlier. Next week we are going to do another weird outlier.
Nice.
So
I'm not sure if my brain can take that, but let's try it.
So I've next week we are going to watch the Cube series. We're going to do the full Cube series because there's only 3 of them. There's Cube, there's Cube 2, and there's Cube 0.
It's a tiny 3 up in the corner, right? It's a math joke.
Cube.
No, well,
Nice.
Yeah. You'll see when we watch. These movies, I told you guys these are kind of the opposite. Like they're the anti-Phantasm.
Oh, I can't wait
So
to see
we'll
what
know
that is.
exactly what a cube is right away.
We'll know exactly what a cube is, and we'll follow these movies.
You will know what a cube is. I think these movies are much better than their renown. You know what I mean? They're not well known. I think they should be well known because I think they're pretty well done movies.
They're Canadian.
They are Canadian.
Maybe
they're a big deal in Canada. I don't know.
Big deal in Canada.
Hey, we might be murdering you now, eh?
Great.
Anyway, you guys should check out the Cube series this week so you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
When we get together again for the Freak Easy. Thank you for joining us for this Freak Easy. We will be back next week. Don't forget to join us every other Wednesday for our regularly scheduled podcast, the Geek Easy. You can find us right here on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe so we can spread the word and get all up in that algorithm.
That's right. All the views.
All the views.
Bring them on.
Every one of them?
Yep.
If you want to follow us and keep up with the Geek Easy and ask us questions and all kinds of other stuff, you can like us on Facebook. That's kind of our hub.
Yes.
Our hub for our fans, all our geek easers out there. That's a working title.
Geek easers. That's a working. I'm putting it on t-shirts.
You can also find us on Stitcher, Podbean, Google Play, Spotify, whatever
they're up to these days.
Whatever Apple's thing is.
Apple the app.
Is these days or is going to be.
Yep.
Yeah, guys. And rate us and comment on all those things so we can get all up in their algorithms.
Yeah, let's do
all the views. Listens.
That was great.
Anything before we're out? Did I miss anything? I got everything.
Wow.
You
missed explaining what a phantasm is. I forgot to do that.
I think I'm getting the hang of this hosting thing, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We will see you guys next week.
How come I haven't gotten to host anything?
Happy Halloween.
The Geek Easy Podcast is a production of PixelDan.com. Musical tracks used in the intro and outro are used with full permission of the respective owners or creators. Intro and outro narrations are provided by me, Brian T. Stevenson. PixelDan.com's The Geek Easy Podcast is provided for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those solely of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily represent those of PixelDan.com or any other party. Be sure to join us next time for another installment of the Geek Easy Podcast.